All right. This video is not talking to David Benjamin, but talking about David Benjamin. Apparently, I have offended him. I don't see why. We were having a conversation on one of his videos. I was talking about Daniel's 70 weeks in the 7-year tribulation. Like, how do you get this 7-year tribulation? There's nowhere mentioned in the Bible the 7-year tribulation, this 7-year covenant with the Antichrist. There's no mention of that. Daniel 9:27 is the only place that you can try to get that, but you need at least 2 or 3 witnesses to establish that. So from Revelation, how can we see the 7-year tribulation there? If Revelation's talking about a 7-year tribulation, we should be able to map that out in Revelation. But he says that you need to use Daniel to see it. I was like, okay, so let's go to Daniel and see how we can see the 7-year tribulation. And like I said, the only place is Daniel 9:27, but it doesn't actually say anything about what he's actually saying. So we disagree, and it's not a big deal. What matters is that we're saved by grace through faith. That's what he says. Like, we're going to disagree on certain things, but it's not really a big deal. But he seems to be offended, and he seems to be offended that I made a video talking to David Benjamin, because I wanted to clarify my point of view, because I don't think he's getting my demeanor and what I'm trying to say through the text. And he ended up talking about me here in this video, Daniel's relevance, so much emphasis for 4 little verses. And this is April 19th, 2022. That's today. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to check it out. Maybe he's going to talk about it. But in the beginning of the video, he says he's not a prophecy kind of guy. He doesn't want to do that. He thinks that there's 3,000 people watching and judging him, waiting for him to say something about the prophecies so that they can critique him and judge him on it. And it's like, oh yeah, okay. I'm not expecting an answer. Now that he explained himself that he doesn't really get into the prophecy and grasp it and is not like a big prophecy teacher. Okay. But in the conversation we were having, David, if you're watching this, you're the one that brought it up. So I got interested about, a 7-year tribulation, and started saying, okay, where do you find this? And can you explain this? And you seemed very sure of yourself about this 7-year tribulation when you can't really explain it outside of Daniel 9:27, and you claim that you're not a prophecy teacher, but you seem very, very sure of this, in spite of that, which I find strange. But the reason why I'm making this video is because of this about a minute clip here I'm going to play of what he was saying, where he talks about me, and he said he blocked me, but I was able to leave a comment right here. And he calls me a punk in here, and it was like, okay, for some reason he's mad. I don't know why. But okay, so let's check this out.
And the guy on my wall was saying, well, how do you get that this is a 7-year period in Revelation? And I told him, look, you don't. Revelation points back to Daniel. And he kept arguing about it. Well, no, I want to see it from Revelation. And I'm like, no, you're minimizing the point. You're trying to distract from Daniel. But Revelation and Jesus, Matthew and Luke, all point us back to Daniel. So
Okay, I'm not trying to minimize Daniel. Matter of fact, I'll bring up Daniel right now, and I will show the passage. I'm not trying to dismiss Daniel, get away from Daniel at all. A matter of fact, in each one of the videos that I've made about this fella, I've actually brought this up. Because he talks about in the Gospels that Jesus talks about the abomination of desolation. That doesn't mention 7 years. It doesn't mention a 7-year peace treaty. It doesn't mention a 7-year covenant. It doesn't mention a 7-year period of time at all when Jesus talks about the abomination of desolation. Right? So yeah, Daniel, very much a key to understanding Revelation and understanding prophecy, no doubt. I don't know why he's making it seem as though I'm dismissing this and trying to get away from Daniel. I'm not. I'm taking this for what it says, and it says, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week." Right? So this says that for 1 week or 7 years, whoever this he is going to be confirming a covenant. Not just a covenant, but the covenant. So this is not a covenant that is 7 years long. It's a covenant that's being confirmed for 7 years. So you see how, this doesn't even say what people say it says? Or it doesn't say there's a 7-year covenant. It says a covenant's being confirmed for 7 years. So this covenant can be for longer than 7 years. And when it says, doesn't say a covenant, but it actually says the covenant, a definite article here, you can be sure that this is God's covenant with Israel, the new covenant, right? So you can easily say that this is the Messiah actually confirming the covenant for 1 week. And I break that down a lot more in the other video, so I'm not going to do that again, assuming you saw the other videos where I'm talking to this David Benjamin guy. But I don't like how he's painting me here. I find it rude, very rude. But yeah, let's check out what else he has to say about me here.
You're the one being disobedient to the scripture by insisting that we generate our timing from the book of Revelation rather than from where Revelation and Jesus point us to, number one.
I'm being disobedient because I want to see the 7 years in Revelation. I want to see how you say the seals start the 7 years, right? I'm assuming that's what most Christians say. And then 3.5 years later is the abomination of desolation. Well, show me that in the book of Revelation. Like, how does that play out? Like, the first seal, and when is that the start of the 7 years at the first seal? Then what is the last thing to happen at the end of the 3.5 years before the abomination of desolation? Is it the 7th seal? Is it the 7th trumpet? What is the last thing to happen so that I can know what happens in the first 3.5 years, and I want to know how you know that's something that happens in the first 3.5 years, right? So I can see it, because I don't see what everybody's seeing about 7 years, because in Revelation, it keeps mentioning 3.5 years. It says 1,260 days, a times time and a dividing of times, 42 months. And it's like, okay, why isn't this the same 3.5 year periods? Why is it 2 different periods? Like, I don't get that at all, right? And if we are to use Daniel to see this time period, why are you using just one verse over here that doesn't say anything about the Antichrist setting up some kind of covenant? Right? We need 2 or 3 witnesses, and there's nothing else in the Bible that says the Antichrist, the false shepherd, is going to set up some kind of covenant, some kind of peace treaty for 7 years. But I can show you something over here in Daniel chapter 12, since we're supposed to use Daniel. You heard him say it. We got to use Daniel for the timing. Well, it says here about the time of the end, right? Because this book is going to be sealed until the time of the end. And this is right after he asked the angel, like, when is this for? And he says it's for a time, times, and half a time. So he doesn't tell him that it's for 7 times. It's half of that. Right? So if we're going to use Daniel to see the timeline, why don't we use this passage here that, oh, this is the end. This 3.5 years is the 3.5 years that John keeps talking about in Revelation. Why don't we see it that way? I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this is how I see it. And if I am wrong, and there's a 7-year period, I want to be shown. But he seems to be getting upset that I'm asking him to show me this, and I'm not accepting that it's one verse when it's a one verse that doesn't actually say what he thinks it says. But let's continue on here.
But this comment on my wall, this thread went on and on and on. It was like 20 comments, long paragraphs. And I find out that the guy has done a video, 52 minutes long. My conversation with David Benjamin. Punk? You know?
That's where I paused it. I was like, well, why am I a punk? I'm not hiding. It's a public conversation. I wanted to clarify myself in a video because I could see this kind of demeanor. Even in his comments, he seemed agitated. So I was like, okay, something's going on here. So I am just going to make a video expressing myself about the conversation just as a record, because he seems like a nice guy outside of this conversation. He seems a little bent out of shape for some reason, but I don't know what's going on in his life. Maybe I'm just adding to some stress that he's dealing with. But yeah, I mean, people are going to see what he's saying and see in the comments. They're automatically going to look at me as some kind of asshole or something when I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just having a conversation saying I don't see this 7 years, and it seems to be getting him worked up, and I don't know why. I don't see the big deal. Okay, we don't agree. We don't see it the same way. Why can't that be that? Right? And like I've said in the comments talking to him is like, hey, maybe you can refer to me to some other fella, some other video article of some kind that explains this 7-year tribulation thing, since you don't seem to be able to do it. You're not a prophecy guy. You don't want to go back and forth. You don't want to have this conversation. But it's just crickets there. There's no response on that end. Not even I don't have anything to give you. It's just, no, you accept what I've already given you. But what you've already given me is not an answer. Like, if you're listening to him, he doesn't say anything about the 7-year tribulation. He just, Daniel 9:27 is the only thing mentioned. And like I've shown, it's not a peace treaty, 7-year covenant with this Antichrist. It's the covenant being confirmed for 7 years. So even if it's confirmed for a year, doesn't mean it's a year-long covenant. It just means that's how long it's being confirmed, right? It could be 10 years being confirmed, but doesn't mean that's how long the covenant is. It can be an everlasting covenant. And as it says, it doesn't say a covenant, it says the covenant. A good example of what I'm saying there is when you read the Hebrew, they always put this ha before the word on a definite article. So you can have Satan, but it's not going to mean the being Satan that we know, the accuser, right? It just means accuser. But if you put ha-satan in the Hebrew, the definite article, the Satan, it's referring to the being known as the accuser, Satan himself, right? So that's an example. It's not saying there in the Hebrew a covenant, just a, whatever kind of covenant. It's saying the covenant, definite article covenant. Something to think about. But I'm going to just play this a little bit longer, because right after he called me a punk's where I stopped it, because I was like, hey, what's the big deal? And I was like, I want to put this on record. Since he said he blocked me, I shouldn't be able to see the video. But maybe after I refresh this, I won't be able to see it. But I'll have this on record anyway.
So I blocked him. And this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I'm trying to help the guy, and he's getting all argumentative and belligerent. He's I guess a younger kid, thinks he knows.
Belligerent? What are you talking about? What did I do that was belligerent? I got the comments on record. Anybody can look at it if they want. I didn't call anybody names. I wasn't being rude to anybody. I didn't say anything out of the ordinary. I'm saying the same things I'm saying in this video. And for the record, I'm probably as old as this fella, if not older. So, yeah, I know people like to use age as some kind of standard, some kind of cursor of truth, but it's not. But anyway, I need to take a quick break here. All right, I'm back. I'm just going to play this real quick to see if there's anything else he had to say about me and wrap this up.
Knows everything. He's got a channel. He gets about 8 to 10 views a video, and sorry, see this thing? It shuts off. I gotta figure that out. But he gets about 8 to 10 views a video, and I wonder why he doesn't have a ministry. He doesn't care about people. He just wants to have arguments. But I'm trying to help the guy out, and even somebody jumped in and said, "Look, he's told you that he doesn't have time to debate all this. How he's going to get bogged down in all this and not even be able to teach." He goes, "Well, if he didn't want to talk about it, then why is he answering me?" It's because I'm trying to help you. You know, and this is the kind of stuff.
I didn't realize this was the kind of guy he was. I really didn't. He is really just kind of subtly digging into me here. I'm a punk. I'm some young kid that thinks I know it all. I'm belligerent. And dang. I guess I'm some kind of punk that don't care about anybody because I only get 8 to 10 views on the video. Wow. I don't know why he's going on about this. Just because we disagree about the tribulation not being this 7-year period, that there's only 3.5 years mentioned. We disagree on this, and now apparently I'm some horrible person to this guy. And I don't care about anybody because I don't see 7-year tribulation, that I'm such an evil person. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
That makes me not want to, it's funny because even some of my longer time subs, their questions, there's a snarky tone to it. You know, like I'll say something like, "Well, if that's true, then how is this?" You know, some little point I made in the video. It's like, man, there are different views, and this is, in a way, it is secondary.
It is secondary, so why is it such a big deal? And that's why I made a video, because apparently you were taking my comments to be snarky. But it's not. I'm breaking things down. So if A, then B, right? If B, then C. And if you get A to D, then where's B and C? There's nothing snarky. It's about how are you getting from A to D without using B and C, right? There's nothing rude or wrong about doing something like that. And just because you read something snarky into it when you read it for yourself, that's just some kind of manipulation from the spiritual realm, and you just need to block that out, right? I mean, you talk about not having time to get into the conversation in the comments, yet you reply to me, and now you've got a section of your video where not only are you talking about what we were talking about, but now you're directly talking about me and talking very negative about me for no reason. I've done nothing to you or anybody else on your channel. I don't get it.
So, like I said, prophecy for some reason turns everybody, all of a sudden they're an expert. Now we're talking about something I'm an expert on. I've studied this stuff, and I've got my views. Okay, you know, so I can see why people avoid it, and I don't want to shut my channel, my comments down. I want the.
All right, I'm assuming that's the end. I'm not going to put you through the last bit of it. I'll listen to that on my own, but never claimed I'm an expert, saying, hey, I do study it. And when I do, I'm not seeing what everybody says is there. And when I ask it to be shown, I know you're going to say the only thing that everybody says in Daniel 9:27. But that doesn't even say that there's a 7-year peace treaty and that it's done by the Antichrist, right? But even if that is what it's Daniel 9:27 is saying, well, then we should see that in other places in the Bible, that there's this 7-year period of time, that there's some kind of 7-year covenant done with this false shepherd, the Antichrist, the Assyrian, Lucifer, Satan, the dragon, the serpent. You use the different names for him, the Pharaoh or whatever, right? You would see this multiple times, right? So that you actually have a witness that you can actually establish a doctrine on. But we only have one verse. So I'm asking, where else is there something collaborating? And you would think that you would see it in Revelation, since Revelation is supposed to talk about that last 7-year period. It basically gives you a couple chapters about the church, and then it talks to you mainly about the last part of Daniel's 70th week. And a lot of people think it's the entire last week, so 7-year period. But in Revelation, it only talks about this 3.5-year period. And it seems to be talking about the same 3.5-year period. It just mentions it like 4 or 5 times. But if I'm wrong, then show me how Revelation is actually talking about a 7-year period, and what happens in the first 3.5, and what happens in the second, and what part of Revelation is actually the abomination of desolation. Like, where is the abomination of desolation mentioned in Revelation? And I'm making these videos, and it's not just for David Benjamin. It's just where the conversation started. If anybody sees it and wants to talk about it, I'm open. But apparently I'm a piece of shit, and I should just be ignored and blocked because I ask questions and don't agree with that the tribulation is 7 years, even though there's the Great Tribulation's 3.5 years. But there's nothing to show that there is a 7-year period of time. Waited for the end, but maybe I just don't see it. Maybe I got to eat some humble pie, right? But I was giving this guy the benefit of the doubt. I thought he was a decent guy, but the way he's treating me, either, he's flawed like the rest of us, or there's just something whispering in his ear that I'm some kind of peckahead, and he's listening to it. And that's a shame. So I imagine this is going to be the end of our conversation. If he said he blocked me, I'm pretty sure if I hit refresh. Matter of fact, you know what? I'll do it for the video. Let's see if he really did end up blocking me. Oh, he said he blocked me, but it looks like I'm still
See, for
on.
some reason.
Yeah, I'm still on this. So maybe he meant like I'm going to block him. I don't know. There's no reply or anything to that. Let's see if there's anything here. Nope. So, I don't know. Maybe this is something he does to play around for entertainment, but I think I'm just going to back away from him, not this whole topic, but away from this guy. He seems a little weird. I don't know if he's going to check out this video or the ones I've already made, but I'm not demeaning him and being belligerent. I mean, that's false accusations. That's what I'm actually shocked about. I thought he was a decent guy, and I'm getting all these false accusations about me. It's uncalled for. So I'm just gonna, back away from this guy. But anyway, thanks for watching and take care.